high call series.
So children, we have already completed the lesson part earlier, and now it is time for us to do the activity part of this lesson, right? So the exercise and activity part of this lesson actually starts with write T for true and F for false, means a true or false question. Okay, so the exercise starts with a true or false question. See, six sentences are given here. Six sentences are given here, and we need to read these sentences one by one. Check with what we have learned in the lesson. Check with what we have learned in the lesson, and based on what we have learned in the lesson, we need to check whether these sentences are true or false. Right? So how can we know whether these sentences are true or false? Yes, if the sentences conveys the idea, something that we have learned in the lesson, then the sentence is a true one. Okay, if the sentence here conveys the same idea that we have learned in the lesson, then it's a true statement. If it is not the same, then it is a false statement. Okay, so the first sentence is, the rays of the sun fall directly on the equator. True. The rays of the sun falls directly onto the equator. Okay, it's true. The rays of the sun fall directly on the polar region. Does the sun rays fall directly on the polar region? No, isn't it? Yes, it's slanting. Isn't it? Yes, the sunlight or the sun rays, when it fall on the polar region, they are more slanting than the straight one that receives on the equator. Ludhiana is cooler than Shimla. Ludhiana is a place which is actually located in Punjab, isn't it? Punjab, above Punjab we have Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, and Shimla is the capital of Himachal Pradesh. So, Shimla is of a higher altitude and Ludhiana is of a lower altitude. Okay, Shimla is located on a higher altitude, whereas Ludhiana is located on a lower altitude. So, as we go high in the altitude, the temperature decreases or increases? Decreases, isn't it? As we go high in the altitude, the temperature decreases. So, Shimla being on a higher altitude should be cooler, isn't it? Shimla is cooler than Ludhiana. Ludhiana is not cooler. Ludhiana is warmer than Shimla because Ludhiana is located on a lower altitude. Okay? So the answer is false. Places near the sea are very cold. Thus we have studied in the lesson with the help of an example comparing Mumbai and Delhi, isn't it? So what we have said is Mumbai has a moderate climate, but Delhi have the extreme climates, isn't it? So does it mean that the coastal regions are comparatively cooler? No. They are not cold. Okay, they are not cold. They have moderate climate. Means neither too cold nor so hot. Because of land breeze and sea breeze. So the answer for the fourth sentence is again false. Right? Fifth one. As altitude increases, it gets hotter. Is it so? As we go higher in the altitude, what happens? The temperature decreases. Means what? Is it becoming hotter or colder? Colder. Isn't it? The temperature decreases means it's become colder. The temperature increases means it's becoming hotter. Right? So here, as altitude increases, it gets hotter is a wrong answer because it's a wrong statement because as we go high in the altitude, the temperature decreases. It becomes cooler. Right? So the answer is again false. Torrid zone has a very hot climate. So what is torrid zone? Yeah, the climatic zone which lies on the either side of equator is called the torrid zone, isn't it? It extends up to the Tropic of Cancer in the north and the Tropic of Capricorn in the south. The climatic conditions in between these two regions are extremely hot, isn't it? So the torrid zone has a very hot climate, right? So that is a true statement. Okay. So we will check the answers once again. See, the rays of the sun fall directly on the equator is a true statement. The rays of the sun fall directly on the polar region is a false statement because there it is falls not as a direct hit, but it is a slanting one. Okay. Third one, Ludhiana is cooler than Shimla is false because Ludhiana is of a lower altitude and Shimla is of a higher altitude. Places near sea have very cold climate is a wrong statement because it's moderate climate. As altitude increases, it gets hotter is again a wrong statement because it becomes cooler at that time. Then torrid zones have very extreme hot climate is a true statement. Okay. So now I will keep the screen the same for another minute for you so that you can read it yourselves. Right? Okay, children. So now we have come to the next one. Fill in the blanks. What is the next question? Fill in the blanks. First one. Dash is the presence of water vapor in the air. So what do we call the presence of water vapor in the air? Yeah, the air which has smaller molecules of water vapor. So that is called humidity. What do we call it? Humidity is the presence of water vapor in the air. Humidity is the presence of water vapor in the air. The areas near to the poles are in the dash zone. So we know around the equator it's very hot, and as we go farther from the equator it gets cooler, and the coolest regions are the polar regions. So Arctic region and the Antarctic region are the most coolest places in the earth. And what do we call that place? What is a zone? It's known as a frigid zone, isn't it? Frigid, frigid zone. So the zone that is of extreme cold temperature is called a frigid zones. Okay. So the areas near the poles are in the frigid zone. Now, the coastal areas have a dash climate. Again, we have this with the example of Delhi and Mumbai. So Mumbai is on a coastal region, and Mumbai experiences moderate climates, whereas Delhi, an interior city, experiences extreme climates, extreme hot and extreme cold. So the coastal areas have a moderate climate. So what kind of a climate is found in the coastal areas? Moderate climate. Now, the dash zone lies between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. The zone that lies in between the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, which passes through the equator, is known as the torrid zone. So, what is the zone that passes through equator until the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer? Torrid zone. Torrid zone. As we go away from equator, it gets cooler, isn't it? Yeah, the sun rays hit directly on the equator, and that region is the hottest region. That region is also known as the torrid region, isn't it? So as we go or move away from the equator, after torrid we have temperate zones, and after that frigid zones, isn't it? So torrid, temperate, frigid. So as we move away from the equator, either in the north or in the south, it becomes cooler. Then a person forecasting a weather is called a meteorologist. So who is the person who studies the weather conditions and predict how the weather during a particular day is? So he is known as a meteorologist, right? Okay, now we will check the answers once. Yes. Humidity is the presence of water vapor in the air. Humidity is the presence of water vapor in the air. We have read it in the lesson now. Towards the coastal regions will be very humid and a sultry kind of a climate will be present. So humidity is the presence of water vapor in the air. The areas near the poles are in a frigid zone. The most cold zone. The coastal areas have a moderate climate, neither too cold nor too hot. So it's a moderate zone. The zone that lies between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn is a torrid zone, the extreme hot zone on the Earth's surface. As we go far away from the equator, it gets cooler. As we go far away from equator, it gets cooler. A person forecasting a weather is called a meteorologist. Right? So these are the questions and the answers. So now I'll keep the screen the same for another minute so that you can read the questions and the answers once again by yourselves. Okay? Write one line about each of the following. So torrid zone, frigid zone, temperate zone. So we need to write one sentence each about these three zones. So we know these are the three zones into which the entire surface of the earth is divided. We can say torrid zone is the hottest zone on the earth's surface. It stretches from the Tropic of Capricorn in the south to the Tropic of Cancer in the north. It passes through the equator. It is the hottest region on the earth. It's a place where sunlight reaches and hits directly, straight, head to head. Is it? Then, frigid zone are the polar regions of the earth. They are the coldest region on the earth. The sunlight never reaches in a straight line up to the polar region. It's the coldest region. Temperate zone is that region where it's neither too cold nor so hot. Okay. So temperate zone is actually located in between the Tropic of Cancer and Arctic Circle in the North Pole, Tropic of Capricorn and Antarctic Circle in the South Pole. Okay. The temperature is here is a moderate one, neither too hot nor too cold. Right? So all these are sentences that we can write about the temperate zone, torrid zone and frigid zone. Right? Okay? So we have given one each here. See, the climate is very hot in torrid zone. The climate is very hot in torrid zone. Second, the climate is cold in frigid zone. It's very cold over there. Third, the climate is neither very hot nor very cold in a temperate zone. Means moderate climatic conditions are there in temperate zones. Okay. So now I'll keep the screen the same for another minute for you so that you can read the question and the answers once again. Okay. So the next question is, write the reason for the following. See, 5 statements are given there and we need to find the reason why it's happening so. Okay, why it is happening so. We need to find the reasons for these happenings. First one, areas near the equator are the hottest region. The areas near the equator are the hottest region. We know torrid zone lies across on the either sides of equator. See, at the equator, what happens exactly is the sun rays hit directly on the equator region and the areas around it. Okay, so as the sunlight reaches those regions in comparatively faster than it reaches other areas. Okay, because it's bulged out and it is easy for the sun rays to come and hit those regions also, right? So the equator and the regions around it are the regions where the sun rays come and hit straight away, and obviously that will be the hottest region on the earth. Second one, areas near the poles are the coldest region. Yeah, because sun rays never reach so directly on the polar region. Second, it has to travel much more distance, a longer distance than the sunlight that reaches the equator. Okay, we have drawn it on the board also, no? So if this is equator, this is a polar region. So the light reaches here faster, but it has still to travel more distance to reach the polar regions, isn't it? Yes, so it takes more time and that sun rays will not be that heat intensive. Okay, so obviously the poles are the coldest regions. Third one, areas between the tropics and the poles are the moderate regions. Yes, the tropics, in between the tropics we have the torrid zone, the hottest zone, right? Above the Arctic zones, the pole zones, it's very cold. So the region lies in between, that is the region of transition. Is it transition of change, means change, right? So the Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, that is a torrid zone. It's very hot. Polar region, very cold. In between, we have the temperate zone. Means what? Yeah, the shift, the change is happening from the hottest to the coldest. Obviously, it will be neither too hot nor too cold, isn't it? Definitely, the climate in this region, which is the region of a transition from the hottest to the coldest, is actually neither too hot nor too cold, because it is a zone where all these kinds of changes are happening. Right? Okay. Now, places near the sea experience a moderate climate. So there is a phenomenon which is called sea breeze and land breeze. A continuous flow of air from or to land, from or to ocean. Okay, so sometimes it goes to ocean, sometimes it comes from ocean. Okay, so this regular circular flow of air helps to maintain a particular level of temperature. Okay, a continuous flow of air from the ocean to the land or from the land to the ocean actually helps to maintain a particular temperature level, and that is neither too high no to low. And that is why the places near the sea experience a moderate climate. Right? Now, places near the sea have a humid climate. So, the region around the sea, we can always experience a kind of wind that comes from the sea or ocean, right? Yeah, as they blow over this ocean or the sea, they carry a lot of water particles along with them. Okay, as they move above the sea, they carry a lot of water particles along with them, and that obviously make the water humid, the air humid, isn't it? It obviously make the air around us humid. So the places near the sea have humid climate because the wind that blows from the oceans or the seas or water bodies always carry a good amount of water along with that. Means they have humid climatic conditions, right? Okay. So now we'll check the answers once. Areas near the equator are the hottest region. The sun rays fall vertically near the equator. So, the areas near the equator are the hottest region. Second, areas near the poles are the coldest region. The sun rays fall slantingly at the areas near the poles. So, the areas near the poles are the coldest region. Third, areas above the tropics and the poles are the moderate regions. The areas between the tropics and the poles are neither too hot nor too cold when compared to the regions on the either side. So when we talk about the southern part in the northern hemisphere, it's very hot. Northern part in the northern hemisphere, it is very cold, isn't it? So as the two sides of these zones have extreme climates, this becomes the bridge between these two extreme climates, and that is neither too cold nor too hot. Places near the sea experience a moderate climate. The region is continuously influenced by the air movement from and to the sea. From the land to the sea, from the sea to the land, isn't it? Yes. Places near the sea have a humid climate. The region usually has a good amount of vapor in the atmosphere. The coastal regions always have a good amount of vapor in its atmosphere, and it makes the air very heavy, humid, right? So now I'll keep all the 5 sentences on the screen for you for another minute so that you can check and read the sentences once again. Okay. So what we next have in the exercise part is answer the following questions. So here are some questions about what we have learned in the lesson, and we need to answer them. First question, what is climate? What do you mean by a climate? The average weather condition of a place over a long period of time is called a climate. So the average weather conditions of a place which is assessed over a long period of time is called a climate. Okay. Second one, what is the difference between weather and climate? How is weather different from climate? How is weather different from climate? See, weather is a condition of the atmosphere of a place at a shorter period of time. It can change from day to day. Weather is a change that is happening for a shorter period of time. It can even change from day to day. The weather conditions that we have today may not exist tomorrow. It can go to the next level or it can come down also. Okay. Climate is the average weather condition of a place over a longer period of time. Climate keeps on changing. It does not remain constant at a place. But when it comes to climate, it's the average weather conditions over a period of time. Say for 3 months, we say, okay, it will be very hot. The climate is getting changed into hot. And before the rainy season, after 3 months, we say, now it's going to change again. There are changes in the climate. Okay, so in the same way, climate is the average weather condition of a place over a long period of time. Climate keeps on changing. It also do undergo changing, right? It does not remain constant at all places. It cannot be mentioned as something constant. What? Weather conditions. Okay, so climate are also changing just like that of a weather conditions. The difference is weather has much more a shorter duration of change, whereas the climate has a longer duration of change. Third one, which factors influence weather and the climate? So what are the factors that are affected by weather and the climate, or which influences weather and the climate? Temperature, distance from the equator, altitude above the sea level, distance from the sea, direction of winds are the factors that influence weather and the climate. So what are the factors? Temperature of the place. Then distance from the equator. Equator is hotter. As we go deeper, it becomes cooler. Altitude above the sea level. As we go up, the temperature decreases. Distance from the sea. The sea coast area has a comparatively moderate climate, but interior regions have an extreme climate. Direction of wind. So the direction, if the wind regularly flows in a particular direction, then those regions, it's quite difficult to have hotter climates because every time it will bring some or other clouds. Right? So temperature, distance from equator, altitude above sea level, distance from the sea, direction of winds are the factors that influence weather and the climate. Right? So I'll read these questions once again. What is climate? The average weather condition of a place over a long period of time is called the climate. What is the difference between weather and climate? Weather is the condition of the atmosphere of a place at a short period of time. It can change from day to day. Climate is the average weather condition of a place over a longer period of time. Climate keeps on changing. It does not remain constant at all places. Third question. Which factor influence the weather and the climate? Temperature, distance from the equator, altitude above sea level, distance from the sea, direction of wind are the factors that influence weather and the climate. So these are the first three questions. I will keep the screen the same for another minute so that you can read them once yourselves, and then we will go on to the next set of questions. Now, question number 4. What is humidity? Humidity is the amount of moisture or water vapor present in the air. The places near the seas are more humid and make us sweat. So, the amount of water vapor that is present in the atmosphere is called the humidity. the coastal regions are more humid than the interior regions because, yeah, the wind that blows from this water body is always carrying a lot of moisture along with them. So that is what is humidity. How does the sea affect the climate of a place? How does the sea affect the climate of a place? The climate of the coastal region is affected by the sea. The places near the sea are neither too hot nor too cold. They experience moderate climate. On the other hand, places far from the sea are hot in summer and cold in winter. So, how does the sea affect the climate of a place? We know there are a sea breeze and a land breeze. The amount of the humidity is high, right? So, because of these kinds of facilities, the coastal regions always have a moderate climate, whereas the interior regions have a extreme climatic conditions. Okay, so cities that are away from coastal regions are always of the extreme climatic conditions. Means what? Yes, if it is hot, then it is extreme hot. If it is cool, then it is extremely cool. Right? Now, why are polar areas cooler than the equatorial areas? Why are polar regions cooler than the equatorial regions? So, what are the reasons? Sun rays fall directly on the equatorial region and fall slantingly on polar region. So, on equator, the sun rays fall straight, and on the polar regions, they fall slanting. Okay, so straight on the equatorial region, slanting on the polar region. So, polar areas do not receive more sun rays. So, because of this region, the polar areas doesn't receive high sun rays. Very light sun rays do they receive. Therefore, polar regions are cooler than equatorial region. So, on polar regions, actually, the sun rays have to travel longer distance. It's a slanting, it's going in slanting, and the intensity is less. On equatorial regions, it's just falling straight, it's a short traveling, and a very high intensity. Okay, so that is why the polar regions are cooler than the equatorial region, right? Okay, I'll read these three questions once again. What is humidity? Humidity is the amount of moisture or water vapor present in the air. The places near the seas are more humid and make us sweat. How does the sea affect the climate of a place? The climate of the coastal regions is affected by the sea. The places near the sea are neither too hot nor too cold. They experience moderate climate. On the other hand, places far from the sea are hot in summer and cold in winter. Why are polar areas cooler than equatorial area? Sun rays fall directly on the equatorial region and fall slantingly on the polar region. So, polar areas do not receive more sun rays. Therefore, polar areas are cooler than the equatorial areas. Okay. So, I'll keep the screen also the same for another minute for you so that you can read them once again. Draw a model of the Earth and label all the heat zones on it. So we know Yeah, we have used a map here. We have used a map here, and this is the equator, 0 degree latitude. Okay, this one, and this is where the sunrise fall. Yes, straight, right? And this is the hot zone, or the what do we usually call this region? Torrid zone. Where are they? Yes, 30 degree north to 30 degrees south means the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Slight variations are there, right? So around the equator until the Tropic of Cancer in the north and the Tropic of Capricorn in the south, we have the torrid zone or the hot zone. Then from the tropic zone, from the Tropic of Cancer till the Arctic Circle in the north. From the Tropic of Cancer to the Arctic Circle in the north, we have a moderate climatic condition. Okay, the same here. Tropic of Capricorn to the Antarctic Circle, right? Tropic of Capricorn to the Antarctic Circle, we have a moderate climatic conditions. So this one and this one are moderate areas of moderate climatic conditions, and we call it a temperate zone. What do we call it? We call it a temperate zone. Okay. So above the Arctic Circle till the North Pole, and below the Antarctic Circle until the South Pole, it is the coldest region, and that is known as the frigid region or the cold zone. The frigid zone or the cold zone. So what are the three zones that we have on the earth? Torrid zone or the hot region, temperate zone or the moderate region, cold zone or the frigid zone, right? So around the equator until the Tropic of Cancer and the Capricorn, we have a hot zone or the torrid zone. From Tropic of Cancer to the Arctic Circle in the north, Tropic of Capricorn to the Antarctic Circle in the south, we have a temperate zone or the moderate climatic region. Then above Arctic Circle till the North Pole and below Antarctic Circle till the North Pole, we have a cold zone or the frigid zone, right? So that is to drawing and marking the three climatic zones on the earth. So the project and activity on the outline map of the world mark major climatic regions. So we have a world map here and we need to mark the major climatic zones in this region. So we have just seen this. On either sides of equator, we have the tropical zone or the torrid zone. Beyond that, the temperate zone in between the tropical lines to the polar lines. Then from the polar lines to the poles, north and the south, it is a polar zone or the frigid zone or the cold zone. Okay, three climatic regions are there: polar zone or the cold zone, temperate zone or the moderate zone, tropical or the hot or the torrid zone. Right? So this is how we mark it. So I'll keep the screen the same for a minute so that you can mark it either on a world map or just to make a note of it. Right? So that is about this lesson. And you can read the lesson and do the activities in the PDF, which is also there, which is available there for you along with this video link, right? You can download it if you want. You can print out it and have a good read of this. And the next class we will meet with another lesson. Until then, be safe, stay home, take care.